In the UK, where more than 100 people have been arrested across England and Northern Ireland in a dramatic escalation of violence by far-right protesters.
Nazis go off our street.
Anti-racism protesters faced off against right-wing protesters in Lancaster. Riots involving hundreds of far-right anti-immigration protesters have erupted in several towns and cities after a knife attack that took the lives of 3 young girls in Southport. False information about the suspects' religious and racial identity circulated online, triggering violent protests. This map shows there have been reports of protests in many major cities in the UK, including London, Manchester, Liverpool, Leeds, Bristol, and Belfast. And this was the scene in the southwestern city of Bristol. Police clashed with rioters and attempted to disperse the crowd on horseback. And this was the scene in Rotherham in northern England, where the rioters assembled outside of a hotel that is believed to house asylum seekers. Bricks flew and windows broke as a fire burned, and police struggled to hold back the mob. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer condemned the violence and vowed to hold those responsible accountable.
If you target people because of the colour of their skin or their faith, then that is far right, and I'm prepared to say so. But it doesn't matter what apparent motivation there is. This is violence, it is not protest. It doesn't matter what the motivation is. The motivation for the vast majority of people in this country is to see their streets safe, and that's what I'm determined that we will deliver.
And with me today is far-right expert from the University of Toronto, Kayla Preston. Kayla, welcome. As a far-right expert, what is your assessment of these riots and protests in the UK?
Hi, Renee. Thank you for having me. As we know, these Islamophobic sentiments kind of epitomized by the far-right protesters in the UK right now, they're not new. And many scholars have argued that this is a buildup of normalized racism and Islamophobia in the United Kingdom, and perpetuated by far-right politicians and figureheads and often tabloid news networks in the United Kingdom. And so this is just one iteration, one very violent iteration of sentiments that have been building up for a very long time.
How is disinformation fueling these riots and protests?
Absolutely. Disinformation is playing a massive role in these riots right now. We know that starting on July 29th, after the mass stabbing, there was many far-right groups and figureheads online, mostly on X, formerly Twitter, posting about disinformation about the accused perpetuator of the stabbings. We know that some far-right groups, such as the English Defence League and the Patriotic Alternative, have been posting disinformation and Islamophobic content about the accused perpetuator of the stabbings, and that has fueled these riots on the streets.
So what needs to happen to bring more stability to the areas where these clashes are happening?
Absolutely. As many kind of scholars in the UK are saying right now, one of them is Arlie Mond, we cannot sit on the fence when it comes to these kind of discourses. We need to state that these are wrong, that, this is not what the UK wants to represent, what they want to put forward. And I know Starmer is trying to kind of lead that in his discussion, in his broadcast recently. And I think we need to see more of that coming from politicians, figureheads, and news outlets in the United Kingdom.
All right, that is our time, Kayla. We thank you very much for being here with us today. Kayla Preston, far-right expert from the University of Toronto.